So, hello, Peter.
Hi, Mark.
Hey, wonderful. Wonderful to get started on this series of podcasts. And the
Yes,
topic is the big spirit, a very vast topic of conversation, one that I think has implications in many aspects of our lives, and one that we're not that comfortable always speaking about openly. So, I am super happy to step into this together with you, to learn from you. I know that the last year has been a big deep dive for you into this, or yeah, into this topic of spirit, one that's always been very close to you, but I think has become even more significant in your discovery, in your exploration. And when I recently saw this beautiful collection of all these different insights and inspiration that you've brought together. And going through that, I just felt the depth of wisdom, the depth of your passion coming through it, and it just really felt like it's important to unpack this to make it easier for all of us, including myself, to really be able to relate to. And that is what triggered this idea of sitting down and actually having a series of podcasts where we can step by step go through all of this, very powerful knowledge, wisdom, and hear from you directly. So I'm super happy to spend this time with you, Peter. Maybe you can give
well,
us just as an introduction a little bit about why is this so close to your heart?
yes, Mark. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, you know, I came across during my walk yesterday, I came across a bench. This was on the beach that has a plaque that says, calm seas make not a good sailor. I thought that was really interesting. We all wish for calmness, but there are reasons why stormy seas come into our lives, and stormy seas do make a good sailor. So, quite appropriate, I think, to use that as a introduction to what I'm trying to say here, talk about here about this being a good sailor and sail with spirit in our lives. In 2022, Mark, as you know, I sailed through what I would call, or what often people call, the mother of all storms in my life. This was the year I was treated for stage 3 cancer in my esophagus. I had no choice but to make myself a good sailor if to continue to make use of this saying. Either that or the realization there and then is I could die a painful death. Or, I could sail through this storm and fully recover and live a full life when calmness returned. Well, Mark, it turned out I did become a good sailor in this particularly stormy sea. Medical tests today show I'm cancer-free. So this was indeed a life-changing moment, to have to go through. And how spirit came about is, when we are faced with stormy seas, existential ones, Mark, um, it's natural for us to reach out for divine or spiritual assistance, as we all do. This was how I was drawn to learn and to lean into spiritual healing. So while I was undergoing treatment, radio and chemotherapy, increasingly my faith in spiritual healing became stronger and stronger. And this growing faith informs me, Mark, deep inside me, that's even before the medical tests I was grabbed, if you like, by this thought that I will be cancer free, even as I said before the evidence. This was quite uncanny because, at the same time, I realized it could be false thinking. I could be just, kidding myself. So, but as I said, I weathered the storm through my faith, through spiritual healing as part of the overall process of healing. And there was never a time in my life that spirit is so alive in me since the passing of the storm, if you like. It just inhabit me. So, and then early on this year, as I was looking at what do I do now, Mark, I gradually realized that spirit and spirituality extends beyond healing. It permeates our everyday lives, at least my everyday life, in my relationships, and in all aspects of my life. And the other side of the coin, Mark, is I come to realize how incomplete my life was when I do not search for spiritual growth. The thing is, Mark, we all have spiritual faculties that are used not only in healing, but in work and life. That's the realization I came to. So, beyond our limited analytical and our intellectual mind, is this vast realm of spirit and spirituality, a wisdom that is highly untapped. And I continue to believe today that this is the key to living a life of full potential, Mark, and leading to a deeper, a more meaningful, and ultimately, over the time we have here on earth, a fulfilled life. So that's how this whole passion, if you like, from the experience I have through the stormy sea and how I sailed across. I'm here now having this conversation with you.
Wow. Thank you, Peter. Really very inspiring. Very inspiring. Yeah, a couple of things stand out. One is this stormy sea, and that we have a choice how we respond to those storms, right? And what I hear you is that you chose the way of faith, the way of believing, the way of knowing that there's calm beyond the storm and choosing to navigate it rather than let the storm take over your life. And I really hear that there was almost like a choice point at at a moment in time where that happened. And the other thing that really struck me is when you speak about this vast untapped potential that is available to us when we embrace the power of spirit in our lives. And I think we're slowly waking up again to what is potentially available to us when we partner or when we engage with spirit. But I don't think that we've always been disconnected to spirit, that this is maybe something that is kind of more part of the modern way of living, right? And that
Yes.
past, that was probably much more integrated in how we were living in the world. And I think it would be really wonderful, starting this podcast off, if you could take us through a little bit of the history, and the human relationship with spirit and how it has, strengthened and weakened over time, and how our relationship has altered over the course of history.
So, as I said, this is this untapped realm of potential. And in order to kind of get a sense of how vast this playground of spirit is, we have to look back at time, right? And let's look at the first box there. It took us today, if we kind of sit back, relax, and look back, imagine the number 13.8 or so billion years ago was the start, as science has shown us, particularly quantum science shows us, the creation of the universe, nicknamed the Big Bang. Through the expanding of the universe, the Earth was eventually, through unbelievable statistics, if there was ever one, because you can't even imagine, the Earth took place about 4.6 billion years ago. And then the first modern humans, which we now call Homo sapiens, evolved 200,000 to 300,000 years ago. And 2,000 years ago from where we are was the mark of the calendar that we use today. In other words, if you like, 2023 years ago was, when the first calendar marking the birth of Christ. So this short sort of condensation mark, all right, gives us a meaningful sense of how we as humans fit into the spirit story, right? Because the spiritual wisdom says spirit pervades all time. It's beyond time, beyond space, and so on, so on. Now, I just learned something in reading a book, and it says, if we want to know our future, then the larger the past our minds can encompass, the larger we can kind of look to our future. So we have so much history if we bear in mind our past, right? So that we don't look at the future and the hope for our future, a better future, over a short period of time, because we may panic and a lot of us just give up. But if we have this expensive, just like spirit, this expensive letting go and look at, the time that it took for us, you and I, and the people watching this to be here, and you hold this thought in mind, perhaps you will see more hope, if you like, right? Put it this way. You see more ideas. You can see how large our future can be. So I think it's a good time, really, to reawaken the spirit and spirituality into our lives, and specifically here into our work lives, because organizations take so much a part of our daily lives, and in fact our lifespan, right? So yeah, isn't it incredible, Mark, if you look at it this way?
It is very incredible, the vastness, the and I love that insight. Like, the larger we can hold our understanding of the past, the more capable we are of projecting ourselves into the future, and having a sense of hope, right, and imagination. And I think, because we're making some connections to the workspace here, spirit and work, which is, one of the main themes of this podcast, I think the same can be said when people are really focused on the short term, quarterly results. It zaps the spirit out of people, right? Because there's the question, what is this all for? Why are we doing this? Whereas if there is a better balance between the big picture, the long term, the vision of the organization, what are we trying to achieve here in the big picture? Then the short term actions make a lot more sense, especially if they are flowing from that bigger vision. And
Yes.
people will feel a stronger sense of meaning in their work. And I think there's a very strong correlation between feeling a sense of meaning and having a spiritual influence or a spiritual connection in our work. So I think this small, short-term, long-term thing that you're talking about here is also very recognizable in what I'm observing in work context today, where too much of it is very, very, very short term. And
Yes.
yeah, and it's very difficult for people to be motivated by that, clearly.
You're so right, Mark, because we have to remember, that if you look at the expanse of time, also in the future, then, when we awaken the spirit, we feel more comfortable in stepping back instead of saying, I want to get this, I want to get that. We kind of step back more often. Yes, we need to get things done. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, as we talk about this subject, keep at the back of our mind, the time is malleable, stretchable, and we have to learn how to work with this. And later on, we'll find out, in the later postcards, when we look at spirituality, reawakening spirit and spirituality in work, all right, that in the work organizations and practices, this will become clear. But during this later podcast, just remember this expanse of the playing field of spirit in our lives and in work. So here we are looking at the evolution, if you like, of the human, the modern human, 200 to 300,000 years ago, and through the eyes of spirituality. And of course, from the beginning of time, there was high awareness of spirit, whether it mostly to animism, all right, from the cave days, the caveman days, and then the hunter-gatherer period, and then into more and more organized communities and larger and larger communities. A lot of which was roots of that early period, 200, 3,000, kind of gel into a wisdom, tradition, thinking. So the world humans began to understand more and more that the natural world, the world of gods, angels, and demons, became more and more refined, if you like, without losing the spirituality of it, the essence of it. And eventually came the 5 religions: Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, and later on, Islam religion. And at the same time, these are organized thoughts on spirituality and religion. At the same time, without religion, just from a wisdom point of view, came Taoism and Zen and so on. So the key features in this pre-modern period is that they are very mystical. And around 1600 years ago was the shift towards a new era called the modern period, or often referred to the age of enlightenment, the age of reason. And this period of time from 1600 years ago was rooted in rational and scientific thinking. And also a lot of inquiry is not through mysticism that slowly get pushed back, in fact, rejected as the modern period evolved. So it became very materialistic. And of course, you have the large civilizations, industrial period, production, and eventually became a more sophisticated and became what we know today as, colonialism, spreading of this. At that time, they were really believed that they were taking, helping to make people's lives, especially lives of other people in different places, in different countries from there, to be more progressive. Progress was the big word for them. Let's progress. Everybody progress. Everybody will win from this if we root ourselves in rational thinking. And so, as I said, they dismiss the supernatural. It can't be proven. So this period, the unique feature is that you have scientific world, and from the scientific world came capitalism, economies, and social orders, and their understanding of morality, good and bad. And they leave spirit to the religious institution. However, all right, in this modern period, which we are still mainly in, all right, Mark, let's remember that a lot of us live in this modern age mentality. It created scientific thinking and all the social order and economy and so on, created huge problems. Planet crisis, inequality in wage, high consumption, resources taken from the earth without any consequences. And while they recognize this crisis, all right, these unsustainable problems that is created, they have full faith that science and eventually technology will be able to take care of it. Even in postmodern, from the 1950s, we continue to believe in science and technology, right? And they are very useful tools. But the key thing is, Mark, they realize that it's not the end all. What about the human person? So the big thing about postmodernity is they were unable, Mark, to present a solution till today, right? We are still grappling with what, modern period has created and is continue to evolve. In fact, even worse, it's happening at a faster and faster pace. Things became more chaotic. Social life, society, politics, polarization of politics, wars, and so on. So you have here in the last period, actually, it's not the last period. It is an emerging period. Meta-modernity is a concept now. We have not transcended post-modernity. We are just, finding our way. And of course, researchers coined this term because we are now more aware of, this kind of history to say eventually, in fact, hopefully, we believe that there will come another period in time which we will call metamodernity. All right. And so here we are. So this period, they recognize the esoteric. That means, the the crazy things. Esoteric means hard to understand things. All right, like metaphysics. These are all what we call esoteric knowledge. All right, they recognize that there's something there, but we still, right now, we still do not know how to channel this into sustainable solutions. So we're starting to recognize mysticism. In fact, today myself, right, to end this, I'm saying that I'm finding mysticism more and more like spirit, untapped, you know. And just very quickly, Mark, about 7, 8 years ago, one of the things that I was attracted to being at Full Potential after having a chat with you and Sujit was that even then, 7.5 years ago, I had this inclination that being at Full Potential could be a platform where I could begin to kind of work with mysticism, because the practices then, all right, in all our meetings, in all our gatherings, all right, had a lot of, recentering, a lot of, spirituality, reflection, mindfulness, and also incorporating a lot of ritual and practices. And that is the beginning for everyone of a mystical experience. And so this journey of mysticism for me, as my spirit awakens, continues. In fact, I think at a at a really, really intense pace, if you like, these days. So
Yeah, incredible. What a journey you've taken us on, Peter. So I think, Peter, this is a really good place just to wrap up for our first, part of this series, right? And maybe you can just very briefly give us a sense of what we're going to be looking at in the next one.
yeah, sure, Mark. What we'll do next one, I suggest, would be to um, talk about, how to talk about how we talk about spirit today. All right. And we will also discover in our next session that, over 60 years ago, all right, there were immense amount of research being done on spirituality at work itself, right? So, to my surprise, it's all there. This discussion on spirit and spirituality as we know it today is all there, and we will kind of jump into this, looking at the ordinary way we think of spirit, and how, the reawakening spirit and spirituality is truly emerging. And then we'll take it from there. Eventually, in later podcasts, we'll look at how, to attain, if you like, go about reawakening spirit in our life at work. And then we start to look at applications and so on and so on.
Yeah. That's wonderful, Peter. Thank you so much. Been a
Mark.
very, very valuable session. Thank you.
And thanks for the opportunity to share this, Mark. It's quite a journey for myself, and very, very exciting what we will talk about next.